Hello, everyone. This is Steve Fletch, co host of Dead Air Radio. I want to say 6-7 years ago, I used to have a podcast called 500 Fahrenheit. I was hosted on another platform which does not exist. I never save anything, but I actually saved all the episodes. I want to start re-releasing them. I kind of put my own twist on the editing of it or whatever for a different visual experience. I wanted to start with this one. This is Shiloh Greathouse. It was really cool to do it. One of my favorite skaters growing up. It was really informative. I got to learn a lot from it about, world industries and, the inner runnings of things, riding for these brands. Even, in the second part, we'll get to like Shiloh's comeback he had. So it's going to be a two-parter. So this is the first hour of it. I think we talked for 5 or 6 hours. It was crazy. I had to condense it down. But here it is, the Shiloh Greathouse episode of 500 Fahrenheit from 2017.
I guess we'll just get into this. How'd you get into skating?
I feel like that there was always, like growing up, there was like always a skateboard in the house. You know what I'm saying? Like as a toy, like a little banana board or something. Even though I wasn't into skating, like there was always a skateboard, and I remember knowing how to stand up on a skateboard at a really young age. Like at 4 or 5 years old, I could ride on my knee or push a little bit and kind of stand up and cruise. But early 80s, I got into BMX racing. That was like my first passion. Like I would, go to nationals, all that shit. I was like, that was my thing. And one day I remember seeing this like full on like stoner, like kind of older stoner, like hippie kid skating down the street. I just got out of school and he was skating down the street on it, like pushing and like jamming down the street. Like, so I was like immediately like super interested. I was like, damn, that's looks really cool. So it like sparked something in my head. And this was probably so, and I started seeing the guy more and more. And it turned out he was the older brother of one of my friends I knew at school. Come like the next year, like 84, I want to say, beginning of 84, maybe end of 83, I met him. And he was way into skating already. This dude, like, he didn't, I don't think anybody ollied at that time that I know of. But like he would like do like power slides on the street. Like he'd like, you know what I mean? Like put his hand down and do all kinds of crazy like power slides and turns and shit. And it was like sick stuff. And he sold me, like he had an old setup. It was a Vision Gator. I remember Vision Gator with tracker trucks. And
was it the Neon Street one? The one with like the neon colors like in the squares around it?
Yeah. Like the Vertigo, like the it was like neon green and black Vertigo. Yeah, that Gator graphic. It was that graphic, green and black, and it had tracker trucks on it with the tracker copers and some green Bones 3 wheels, the big ass Bones 3 wheels. He sold it to me for really cheap, maybe like $15 or something. And it was pretty beat up too. The board was pretty beat up, but I was psyched. Yeah, it was definitely a lot cheaper than I look back on that, and it's funny how skateboard prices haven't really changed that much.
Well, did he want to get it to you too? Kind of like,
I think so. I think exactly. I think he was like,
yeah.
I think that had a lot to do with it. He was like psyched that I was so interested in skating. So I bought that board off him and I started skating it every day. And I would ride around the city with my friends, and I would bring my skateboard with me. I'd have it like hold it on my arm. I'd have it hanging on my handlebars, and we'd get to places where we'd hang out, and I'd be, sitting there practicing like 360s and doing tic tacs around, and you know what I mean? Trying to do little like power slides and stuff. And just like within that year, skateboarding just took over for me. I just got way into skateboarding. And then a lot of my friends were starting to get into it too. Other friends who were BMXers were getting into skating also. The next thing you know, I saw the first video I saw was the Search for Animal Chin. I saw the Search for Animal Chin and it was over with. But I hadn't even, it's funny because I saw Search for Animal Chin before I even saw like the Bones Brigade video show or Future Primitive. The Search for Animal Chin, saw that video, and by that time I was already ollieing. I could already ollie.
Did you teach yourself how to ollie?
Yeah, because I never, basically.
You saw somebody and you're like, all right, I got to figure this out.
Exactly. I saw somebody else do it, and I was like, I have to learn how to do that. So I would, practice. You know how I learned how to do it was doing them up curbs. Like I would practice because I could already, before I could ollie, I already could skate pretty good. You know what I mean? Because before I saw people ollie, I was already skating. So I could already pretty much smash down the street, like push and just roll down the street, do little crack hops, crack ollies and shit.
Mm-hmm.
and I could roll off curbs. And I was already like rolling off of like, you know, little benches at school and shit like that before I could ollie. So when I saw somebody ollie, I immediately was trying to do it up a curb, like up the curb. So I'd kind of not get a full ollie. I'd like drag my tail and jump, and I would kind of wheel bump the curb, like, you know, or like how you bump over parking blocks.
Yeah.
Like parking block ollies. I would do that up the curb. And that kind of taught me how to ollie. And eventually I was like, you know, I would just ollie straight up the curb without bumping my wheels, which is kind of weird, I guess, but I guess not at the same time, because I think a lot of, you know, think about all the pros who were like pro skaters that couldn't ollie. The ollie wasn't even invented yet. Mm-hmm. And they were like, you know, good skaters already. So pretty much how I got into it. And then, like I said, first round chin, that was like.
What was your favorite part of that video? Search for Animal Chin.
Man, you know, it's funny. Like as a kid, I still was like, even back then, I still psyched on all the vert skating, but street skating was such a like, because there's no vert ramps in my neighborhood. You know what I mean? All we had was street. So seeing street skating blew me away because it just like, it was relatable. You know?
Yeah, you could go outside your house. That's like what I remember. It was like, oh my God. And you could go outside your house and just try it. Like ramps, you'd have to go to a park or somewhere else. And yeah, so I wouldn't have even known where to go to skate that stuff when that stuff was out.
Yeah. Me neither. That was like, it was like, that's like a vert ramp. Like going to a vert ramp was like going to Disneyland. You know what I mean? It was like such a big deal if like, you know, and like I said, I had no idea who even had that kind of shit in their yard. I didn't know anybody like that. One of my favorite parts of that video was the SF jump ramp session in Golden Gate Park.
Yeah.
Jesse Martinez doing massive fucking crossbone airs and shit. That was probably one of my favorite scenes in the wall ride. They put it up to the wall, big ass wall rides. Wallows definitely was another favorite scene. Damn, I'm trying to think, man.
There's a lot, man. That was like one of the first videos, I guess, for me, like aside from Gleaming the Cube, which was like, we were like, oh, that's a skate. I remember my one friend, you know, and he was like, what skate videos you got? And he's like, I have Gleaming the Cube, you know, and I'm looking at him like, I was like, yeah, it's a movie. He's like, yeah, but they're skating in it. And we would watch it. Like, it was that. And then, you know. And like Thrashing. Yeah. Thrashing I didn't see till later, which is pretty crazy.
I saw Thrashing before I saw Gleaming the Cube.
Thrashing's way cooler.
Yeah, but you know what's funny though, is because I had a lot of older friends. Most of my friends who skated were older than me. I always had older friends growing up. Like most of my friends that were my age weren't into the stuff I was into. You know what I mean? Or truthfully, a lot of them weren't even good enough. Like, you know what I mean? To like hang, like even with BMX racing. I raced with like the older kids because I would smoke all the kids that were my age.
Right. So you had to stay competitive, even to keep up with it and keep an interest in it. You got to go with people who are on your level or better.
So I kind of grew up with like an attitude. It kind of sucks. It's like shitty when I look back on it because I had these older kids who already had like kind of dick attitudes about shit. Like, and that was my influence because they were older than me and they are, you know, a lot of them were like, some of them were smoking already and shit and drinking. And so, but like I was saying, like around the time, like Thrashing and Gleam the Cube, like when Gleam the Cube came out, we just clowned that shit 100%. Like that shit was a joke, straight up. Like it was like the biggest joke ever. You know what I mean? Like, but we still watched it to see like our favorite pros, you know, skating in the movie. But like we would clown like how he fucking the freeway scene, how he's first of all he's on the fucking freeway.
And with the metal grip tape, that's always my favorite too.
Yeah, dude, he has fucking diamond cut grip tape and shit. And he like goes under the semi. Remember, he goes under the trailer of the semi. He goes under it front side, and then he goes up the wall. He goes up the wall, front side wall ride, like front side wall ride to a front side air. Next thing you know, they clip and he's doing a big ass method backside air. And I remember we were like, "What the fuck? Like what?"
Yeah, when he's skating freestyle in the building, I always thought that was funny. Like all of a sudden he has a freestyle Mike McGill board. Yeah, he has a little tiny. Yeah, his board shrinks down to a freestyle board. Yeah, like we clowned that movie hard. It was a joke. But yeah. So that's even like Thrashing. Like we clowned that movie too. It's so funny looking back on that. And now it's fucking what's his face. The main character ended up becoming such a big actor. James Brolin. I remember seeing it. I remember I was like, wow, these guys are like drinking and picking up chicks and sneaking around their windows and like, you know, I was like. Yeah, it was actually, you're right. It was way cooler because they were showing like the LA scene. Like, and there was like the beef between like the fools from the Valley and fools from LA and shit. The Daggers. Like, the Daggers is what I know from being on the East Coast. Like, I guess I'm going off topic here, but like me and my friends were more into like the world stuff and 101 and all that shit. And then I remember going to Philly, and if you didn't have, you hung out with the kids who had the 49 millimeter wheels, whatever. And then the other dudes like Ricky Oyola and those dudes were the daggers, and they would call them daggers. And that was the first time I ever heard it.
Oh, really?
I never knew where they got it from, but they would be like, oh, the daggers, those guys are the daggers. And then, that's the bad guys from, it's the bad guys from, yep.
I never knew that. I never knew that they were like, they even called themselves that out there.
Well, they would call, like the tech dudes would call them that, like, oh, that's that dagger shit.
That's kind of sick though. That's sick.
Yeah.
That's a trip. That's cool shit though. I never knew that. Trippy shit. But then you look at Christian Slater, and that dude's like a washed up, D-list actor.
So it was the diamond plated grip tape. It did him in.
Oh, front side, and he had like metal. Remember, he had like a metal nose guard and like metal.
Oh God, yeah, I remember watching that, and it was just like, what the hell? Even as a kid, and I was
you knew something was wrong.
Yeah, I was like, you'd fall off of your board with that. Yeah. Movies.
So, yeah, dude, skate movies. I wonder when they're ever going to come out with another one.
What was the last one? The P-Rod movie? Does that count? Wasn't there one with
I didn't know that.
Street Dreams?
I've never seen that. I didn't even know there was a.
Oh God, yeah. So I watched a little of it. It was so bad. But there's something, and I guess it's P-Rod, and he enters these contests, and then he does the finishing move. It's like a 360 flip nose grind or something, or a 360 something he calls it, has a name for it or something, and he wins the contest. Like real life stuff.
Damn, man. Yeah, it's like trying to depict what really goes down for a contest kid.
Oh my God.
Basically,
skateboarding. Like I can't relate with any of that stuff, man. I don't.
Me neither. That's just whack.
It.
That's just
It's different now, man. Even these kids that skateboard now, I can't consider them skateboarders. It's just night and day.
Dude, they're fucking. I seriously, I hate that it's come to this, but like, I look at like all these new kids. It's just most of them just like sellouts. Like they have no soul, no skateboard soul. You know what I mean? It's just.
I don't think they don't live.
They don't know
breathe
though.
It and have to deal. No, they go to the park every day. We used to have to skate street and get kicked out. Like I didn't have parks. And we used to you have to go out, find stuff, and skate. You'd actually have to skate around. These kids don't know. They drop it on water pipes. They don't even know how to roll.
Exactly. It started out, their first experience with skating is mom dropped them off at the skate park.
Yeah.
They're like, Mom, I want to get a skateboard. Okay. They go to get their skateboard at Zoomies, and then the next day they're getting dropped off at the skate park.
It sucks.
Yeah.
The worst I saw, and I don't know if you're cool with them or not, but like Joey Brzezinski had something on his Instagram, and it said something like, stop skating park. Here's the challenge. And it was like, don't skate a park for 30 days. And I'm thinking like, shit, if this was, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, people would have been saying like, what the fuck are you talking about? And these kids were like, they were like, yeah, that's so cool. We're going to take this challenge. Like, I don't know if I can do it, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, wow.
That's true
changed,
though,
man.
dude. Right?
I was like, shit's changed, and I don't get it.
20 years ago, there was a skate park that we could actually go skate at, and somebody's like, don't skate the skate park, that we'd be like, fuck you. Shit. We'd be psyched that we just had a skate park. I remember like, fuck, I don't know. This was probably like early 2000s, like maybe around 2001, 2002, maybe a little bit. Yeah. Like 2001. I remember when there was no skate parks in LA whatsoever, nothing. And the first skate park to open up, which is funny that I live like a couple blocks away from it now, is in Long Beach, El Dorado Skate Park. That was the first skate park, to open up in all of LA. Like first public free skate park that you could just, cement park. And it fucking sucks. It's still the exact same to this day, 20 something years later, whatever. And it's still a piece of shit fucking park. But it was the only fucking skate park. And I remember I was living in Hollywood at the time, and we would all meet up down there like every day just because it was a skate park and we knew we wouldn't get kicked out. Crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's something to do. We had there's this one place, this parking lot. I don't know what it was. It was some weird youth group or something. And I remember they had like ramps in the back, and it was horrible. I actually quit skating. I was in 10th grade then, so it was probably like 94. And I remember I was so miserable because I didn't have a car and I didn't drive. Like, it's different out here. You can't get your license until you're 17, 18 out here. So the one dude who drove only went there, and it sucked. And I just hated it. I hated just being confined in this parking lot. And
so you were over it.
I quit, and like I was like, oh, basketball's fun. I'll pretend like I can play basketball for a little bit. And then I was just like, I got it. Like a month, I was like, I got to skate again.
I did that for a while. I did the basketball thing for a while too, because I always was into basketball. And there was a point like late junior high, like 9th grade. I guess that's high school now. But when I was in school, ninth was whatever. They always some places are different, whatever. But I was in junior high. And I was in 9th grade. Yeah, for a minute, dude, for like a couple months, I just like stopped skating and I got way into just playing basketball. And I'd play basketball every single day.
Were you already sponsored then?
No, I wasn't sponsored yet.
Damn. Yeah, but sometimes there's shit that's fun still. Like I remember I was horrible at it. Like trust me, I was awful at basketball, but it was fun. It was something to do. You're running around and I don't know. Yeah. It was fun, and then I was like, man, I miss skating.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Same thing happened. You know what happened? Like I saw like I said, just like you, it didn't last long. It was maybe a month, maybe 2 months at the most that I didn't skate. And I saw one of my boys, like I was after school playing basketball, and maybe it was a couple of my homies, like they came up to the school. They were skating around together, like we would always skate after school. And they were up at the school skating, and I saw them. They were like, hey, and I saw them skating. And I was like, oh man, I need to go skating. And like that was it. The next day, like, I was skating again.
Yeah, I remember it was totally like, it was pretty crazy. So I remember I didn't skate, and then it was like Christmas time, and I went to the local skate shop, and I got, because like I didn't know what came out even, and because my school nobody skated. Where I went to school, nobody skated, and this was kind of like by us anyway. It was every town had 1 or 2 kids that skated maybe, and I remember I met up with my other friends, they a couple towns over, and they were skating, and I remember going, I was like 20 shot sequence, like what's this like. And I remember my friends kept saying, they were like, oh, it's the family video. They kept calling it that. And I go into the place, I'm like, do you have the family video? Like, I thought that was the name of it.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, here. And I was like, oh, 20 shot. I was like, all right, cool. And I didn't know if these kids were bullshitting me, or it was like one of those things like the 101 videos coming in all the different boxes or what. And I was like, oh, dope. And I remember I was like, had to get a board, and it was after Christmas. So I remember I got stuck with like some shitty Colin McKay board. But I was bummed. I was like, fuck, like that's all you got, I was like, all right, I'll deal with that. But
damn, it's crazy to think that the skate shop, like that's all they had left, like board.
Yeah, I was surprised they even had it. And they did, and they were like, yeah, we got. I don't know if they just had whatever. It was weird because usually all that shit they'd get they'd only get like 6 or 7 videos, and those would fly off the shelf. But I had that, and that was awesome. Like to come back into skating and see all that stuff. Like,
damn, man, you guys had it rough back east, dude. Seriously, compared to out here,
we get snow. I'll say that. That's
I'm just saying, yeah.
But a lot less kids skate. Oh, it's totally different. Totally
can't skate in the wintertime. I mean, now things have definitely changed. But back then, like 20 years ago, hardly any skating going down in the wintertime. The shops didn't have weren't like out here. Skate shops, skating thrived out here so much. The skate shops were always stocked with everything. They always had the newest videos, the newest mag, I've heard stories, for over the years, heard so many stories.
Oh, yeah. We're just behind. Even what's funny is, I guess it's reverse. Like our dudes in San Francisco, like we ship the boards out of here, and they're not used to it. Like I tell them, like when you get down to a board, you got to hit me up. Like I mailed your box. It's going to take a week to get there. Yeah. And it's like, even that stuff, but that's how it was with us on the East. Like stuff would come out and we wouldn't have it. And there's a lot less shops by us too. And the shops, we never had a skater-owned shop. So they never lasted long out on Long Island anyway. They never really lasted because they didn't skate. And it was like, well, they don't love it. So, hey, we're not doing well. Like, we'll get out of here. And there's a lot of like surf shops. I was
going to say, they would just carry a few skateboards to test the waters type of shit. Or like bike stores that carried, make a little skate section to see how, if it takes off.
Did you ever do any of those? Did you ever come out to Long Island for any demos? Because there was they used to have world demos, but this is like back in the day world demos. Like at this one bike shop, Danny's Ride Away, they had them. I remember.
The first tour I went on for World was in 1990. We did go to the east, we went like through the south from out of California through all the way down through the south to Florida and up the East Coast. But it ended in New York, and but we didn't go to Long Island. I don't even think we had a demo in New York either. I think the last demo we had was in New Jersey.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. And that was all by bus, right?
No, that was all. Well, yeah. Basically, in a van, big ass van.
Wow, damn. So I guess we'll backpedal a little bit. So once you're skating now, like, how did you start getting sponsored? How did you get hooked up?
So obviously, like when I said, when I first, when I got the bug, like probably around 84 was when I was committed. 1984. That's when I was like, I never looked back from that point. So continue skating. I'm always skating, and then here I am, say, it's junior high, 7th, 8th grade. I'm starting to bus it all over the city. Like I'm meeting people all over. Like I take the bus to Venice and I meet all, the skaters at Venice Beach, and which definitely was an advantage for me being, from LA. I met a lot of like I knew a lot of the pros early on. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I was, like I knew Eric Dressen and like Hosoi and all these dudes before I was even sponsored. So like I kind of grew up skating around a lot of these dudes. So I mean, it helped put me on the radar early on. What I like back in the day, back then, how most people got sponsors back then is you had to enter contests.
Right. So yeah. What was that, Castle?
Yeah, Castle and MSA. So my first sponsor, well, I skated for LA Skates, which they were originally called Hot Skates. And
Hot Skates, I remember them from like magazinettes, like in the back.
That's a different. Oh,
is that different?
Yeah, I think that Hot Skates was out of Florida, and they were like one of the first to pioneer the mail order, the mail order deal. They were they were out of Florida, I'm pretty sure. But the Hot Skates I skated for was here in LA, and there was just a small shop, but a lot of like up and coming like dudes in LA rode for them. Like some dudes who rode for Z. Rode like this dude Dino Campa, who ended up becoming a gangster, like, and stopped skating, but the dude was super talented. Just like a few heads, like, they were up and comers, skated for them. And then they changed their name to LA Skate Company, and they still exist to this day. They're still in LA and Silver Lake to this day. So that was my first sponsor, and through them, like they hooked me up with a lot of people, like people who were good to know at the time, like older dudes, friends of mine that had cars. And they would take me to like the little contests here and there, because they'd always go to the contest. So I'd tag along with them and enter like these little local contests that all over the city, and like, do pretty well here and there. Maybe get a second place here, a third place there, whatever. As a little kid, help branch me out, because I'm meeting people at these contests that are from all over the city. Like I'm meeting dudes who are already sponsored. They're like, maybe a little bit older than me. They just got sponsored, like, And so now I'm connecting with dudes, getting people's phone numbers, and they're like, "Hey, you should come out, out to my house in West LA for the weekend, and we'll skate around, Santa Monica and West LA and whatever, my part of town. We'll go to Kenner and go like spots that I already knew from videos that I'd never been to yet, like spots where I see Nodis and Dressen and these fools skating, and I'm all, we'll go to Venice High and shit like that. So I started hooking up with all these dudes, like all around the city. How LA is huge. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm busting it like this. I'm a little kid taking the bus by myself, just with my skateboard, like my backpack and my fucking, my Walkman and shit. And like just staying at people's houses. And then eventually my dad lived in Hollywood, and I would stay with my dad most of the time, because that was like, there was a big scene out there, and I knew a lot of the dudes in that area, like Paulo and Billy. And, there's a lot of other dudes that nobody even knows of anymore in that area, but it was going off in Hollywood, the Hollywood area. But then my dad moved to North Hollywood. So when he moved to North Hollywood, and I'd stay with him there was right down the street from a shop called Val Surf. And Val Surf is like huge in the skateboard industry, And so I started riding for Val Surf. I started skating for them, and they would pay my entry fee to go to like bigger contests. So I started entering like the contest at PAL and like NSA and Castle contests and stuff like that. So from entering those contests, I ended up getting on Alva. That was my first board sponsor.
I gotta, you know what? Before we get into that, John Fowler, he wanted me to tell you what's up.
Oh shit! Are you gonna email him, or he'll probably listen to this? What's up, John?
I don't know.
Man, John Fowler.
The other day.
John Fowler was my first board sponsor for Alva, and it's funny. It was Alva, like it was only Alva when I was on. It remained Alva, and it was me, Kelly Bird, Ronnie Bertino, Anthony Oglesby, this dude named Jason Corbett, who was good. He kind of just like fell off the map. It was a pretty sick team. Pat Brennan. It was like a sick. I was psyched to ride for it. And then like because we had kind of like this sick street team at the time, then Falahy, I guess, maybe something happened with Tony Alva, because I know Tony Alva had nothing to do with it at that point. It was just the name,
right?
Because and Falahy owned the name.
What did he start? New School then?
Yeah, he changed it to New School. So shortly after I get on Alva, the name gets changed to New School, which I'm not even. I'm like, this name sucks. You know what I mean? Like I was like, this name's whack, dude. I was like, I was way more down for Alva, just 'cause at least Alva still had some heritage.
Yeah, it had a history behind it.
Yeah. So I'm already bummed that the name gets changed, but I mean, no matter what, it doesn't even matter. No matter what, I wanted to ride for World. Riding for World Industries was my goal. Ever since the first like ads, since Rubbish Heap. Like when I first saw Rubbish Heap, I was like, that's the company I need to skate for. I was like, that's I'm that shitty kid who needs to ride, who wants to do bad shit. You know what I mean?
I remember seeing that video, and that video like opened my eyes up, and I just Rubbish Heap. I remember seeing it, Jeremy Klein, and like paint pen shoes and all the I was like, this is amazing. This is the coolest shit. Yep. Like this is skating, and since
it was the rawest form of skating ever, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was amazing, and it was cool. It wasn't and it wasn't manufactured. It looked like I could have made the video like with my friends, but it was sick skating. It wasn't like dolly cams and like the Powell videos were produced.
Exactly, it was Powell, and we were smart enough at that young age. I mean, to realize that Powell was just so corporate. Like I had no desire. Maybe like when I saw Animal Chin, that was like the last time at that time that I thought about like, oh, it'd be sick to ride for Powell. It didn't take long for me to realize that Powell was just like run like some shitty corporation.
I'm saying it's funny because they kept trying to push in their videos like against corporate, and they were kind of the corporate company. And,
no, dude, I remember, especially once I started meeting like the riders, like when I met like Guy and Paulo and all those dudes, they still rode, and Gabriel, and this is when they still rode for Powell, and those dudes like would they hated on Powell. They were like that's why it was no big. It was like. When Blind happened, they were gone. Everybody was like, when all that shit happened in the world, they couldn't wait. Dude, I remember seeing they had a rule book, like a team rider like handbook.
Wow.
That's like all this that was like guidelines to like how they need to conduct themselves, and you know what I mean. Like it was
unbelievable.
It was that bad. It was that bad.
Wow.
So when World Industries, when SMA, World Industries.
Right, it was SMA World Industries, right.
Yeah, when that hit the streets, it was just like, dude, this is skateboarding. This is what skateboarding is right now, like what it should be. So like I said, I was hooked. And so here I am riding for New School. And like I said, I don't even think I even rode for, I think it was the course of like not even a whole year that I got on Alva, they changed the name to New School, and then I quit New School to ride for World. It all happened like within the same year.
How did that come? How'd you get that opportunity to go to World?
I was skating. I entered this PAL contest. It was at the PAL skate zone or whatever. Mm-hmm. I can't remember exactly what contest it was. It was a sponsored AM contest, and I was already friends with like me and Kareem were already friends. Like I had already been skating with Kareem a lot. I already knew. I didn't know Daewon yet. I knew Daniel and Kareem. I knew Daniel, Kareem, Uhuru. Who else did I know that rode for World? I knew like the West Side heads. That lived in like the Venice, the area that I always skated. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Venice, West LA, Culver City, Santa Monica. I knew all those dudes. So, and I kicked it with them all the time. So it was kind of like, I don't know. I think it was kind
you
of
fit in with them. You guys got along.
It was a natural. It was kind of a natural progression for me to end up riding for World, which is funny because that's what I wanted in the first place. But like I didn't stress it. I was having so much fun just skating anyway and getting free boards. And at that time I would like trade my boards in at shops to get World boards.
I was just gonna ask you about that. That's dope.
Yeah, dude. So here I am skating in that contest. It might have been the Quartermaster Cup. That might have been what contest it was at Powell. And I don't know. Did I even place? I mean, I even placed. I don't know. I think I did good qualifying. I blew it in my final run, type of shit, whatever. But I remember at the end of the contest, Kareem coming up to me, and like I was like kicking it with who knows who. It's so funny to think of all these dudes who like everybody grew up to become like these such big pro skaters and whatever. But we were all just little kids, and like we were all sitting there just talking shit like on the sideline of the contest. And I remember Kareem coming over and be like, hey, Shiloh, come on, Rocco wants to talk to you. And I was like, what? He's like, come on, dude. Like, Rocco wants to talk to you right now. Go talk to him. And I was like, what? I was like, all right. And like, I'm like heart beating out my chest, super excited, thinking like, dude, is this it? Is he going to ask me to ride for World? You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
And I mean, that's what it was. So I go to talk to Steve, and he's like, there was like cut to the chase. It was just straight up. I walk up through, he's like, hey, Shiloh, what's up? Do you want to ride for World Industries? It was like, seriously, first sentence. And I was
damn,
just like, and I was like,
yeah.
Yeah. I was like, yeah. He's like, call this number. He gave me a card with World's number on it, whatever. He's like, call this number and talk to Megan, and she'll send you your first package. That was it. He's like, on Monday, call this number. Called Megan on Monday. Megan's like, oh, hey, Shiloh, whatever. And next thing I know, a couple days later, I got my first World box.
Damn. Do you remember what was in it?
Yeah, I remember it was stuffed. It was a gang of shit. Dune baby boards, the Dune standing baby boards. I want to say there was even like Colvanetics. No, I don't think slick bottoms were out yet. I'm trying to remember. Maybe slick bottoms, because I think slick bottoms came out when I was already on World. Maybe not. I don't know. But it was the boards still had shapes. They weren't,
Yeah.
It was like still the old shape boards. Like Ron, there was like Ron Chat, like, because everybody still rolled for World. I think there was some Jeremy Klein, the Dutch, like the little Dutch baby. It looks like with the black eye. I don't even know.
Yeah. That was a slick. So I remember that was, and he had the book like how to make friends.
It could have been or something. It might have been.
But I remember that.
It wasn't that board. It wasn't that board yet. That was later. It was the Candy Monster board. Jeremy Klein Candy Monster boards
with the vegetables.
Yeah, with the vegetables. You're chasing the vegetables.
Yep, I had that. That was my first World board.
Yeah,
wow.
there was all I know is that there was fucking there was like 6 boards in there, and I had never seen six boards together, held 6 boards together.
Yeah. What were you getting from Alva / New School?
Like 2 boards at a time.
And that was a month or whenever you'd call. So not even.
More like a month. Yeah, like 2. Yeah. But I would go down there because if I went down there, because Kelly Bird worked, he skated for them and worked there, packing boxes. So if I went down there, he would hook me up. So I would always go down there. I'd have a friend drive me down there and be like, I'll give you a set of wheels if you drive me. You know what I mean?
Damn. Yeah.
Or I'll give you like a T-shirt, like and whatever. Or sometimes a board or whatever. But Kelly would hook me up and he'd put more stuff in my box. So I would always go down there. But I still only get like 3 boards. And I remember one time telling Kelly, like, dude, come on, man, let me get some more boards. He's like, man. I remember saying something like, dude, I don't even get that many boards. And like, I should remember, dude, I just remember, dude, it's fun. Kelly's always been a funny ass dude. It's funny. Even when I quit New School, I told Kelly that I quit. I didn't even talk to Falahy. I was such a punk ass kid, man. Such a punk ass kid. But I remember Kelly being psyched for me because I told him I'm gonna ride for World. He was just like, what, dude? Like, you got to do it,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was blown away. It was stuffed. The box was stuffed. It wasn't even square. It was like rounded. It was bulging. It had just full packs of fucking stickers. Like, it was just insane.
Yeah,
T-shirts,
unbelievable.
Tons of T-shirts. Yeah, ghetto wear shorts and pants, and I think it was just the shorts. I don't know. It was ridiculous though. I'm sure you've heard the stories of like what we used to take from World.
Yeah, I mean, just being a fan of it, hearing stories. But I remember that, like, did they keep the boards at the park?
That was later on. See, they started doing the boards at the park because we used to take so much shit. Dude, Rudy Johnson bought a car off of how much he literally took so much stuff from World and sold it that he was able to buy a car, a Honda Civic, with the money.
Oh my! And they were selling so many boards. Did they even was that even a notice? Like, was somebody like, "Hey"?
I don't even think they even noticed, dude.
Wow.
They could boards. Man, at one point when they moved to the location they were at before they are now, as you know how they're dwindled where they are now. Yeah. Well, the last location before that, when they were on Nash Street, the warehouse. I remember like when they first moved there, they had to move there because they needed a bigger place, and I just remember, dude. They had thousands of boards in there at any one time on the shelves, and they were just constantly, every day, dude, boxes were just being shoveled full of boards, like just. Wow. It was insane, dude. Boards were just as soon as they came in, they were gone. It was like just, man, I felt for the dudes who worked in that warehouse. They were like
working.
It was a busy ass warehouse. Damn. Definitely. And
and they were running new graphics all the time too. Like they were way up on their shit. Like. All right, every month, right? Every month there was new graphics.
I thought that was lame though. That's one thing that bummed me out because I really liked how like I liked when
memorable.
Yeah,
like you had a Roscop faceboard, you knew what that was. The Nodus with the cat, like they were iconic.
They become iconic. The graphics become iconic, dude. And I feel like that bumps me out. Like from when I turned pro at the time where World Industries was pumping out a new graphic every month. And it's like we never, us pros at the time, never really got a chance to have any iconic graphics, really. You know, so that bums me out. And I didn't care about a new graphic every month. You know, like in fact, majority of my skateboard graphics I hated. You know, like. Yeah.
I guess we're skipping ahead a little, but like, did you have input in your graphics then, or would you shoot any ideas of those guys, or they were just like, here you go, like you'd get a box, like, oh.
Well, I could. That did happen. There's definitely times that did happen that I'd have a board come out and I had no idea. I'd see my name on it and be like, oh, well, I guess that's my board. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But most of the time.
Well, what was your first board?
My first board was that it was when they turned me.
Was that the one with like a TV screen and all the dudes and like
it
was like
it's called Hail to the Chief.
Yeah,
and that Rocco's face is on the screen.
Yeah, that one. And Day One had one, I think. Day One's, if that was his first board at the time too, is that like he's laying like down and there's all these chicks around him?
No, everybody had one. Everybody's board had Rocco on it. It was called the Hail to the Chief series.
Was it Rocco laying down with like a harem of women?
Yeah.
Is that Day One's? Okay, because I had that.
Well, I thought Day One's was the statue. It's like a fountain statue of Rocco. That's somebody's though. Somebody had that board, but they turned me, Day One, Chico, and I think Javante was already pro. Maybe
Javante pro. He probably was because that at night board and all that stuff I think was already out.
No, that board was that
later?
Wait. No, you're right. That night board was already out. Yeah. That board was already out because I'm skating that board in Love Child and I wasn't even pro yet. Like when I do the two. Yeah. So so me, Day One, Chico. Oh, Chris Branagh. Even pro. They turned Chris Branagh pro.
Chris Branagh. I was looking up stuff for him. I found a sticker on eBay the other day.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm friends with him on Instagram. Like if we follow each other, whatever, and he like, I'll say what's up to him. Like, hey, what's up? You know, he's like a big. It's so funny because like we used to terrorize him, and he was like just this little punk kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he wasn't that young. He was pretty old. He was small.
He was just little.
He was small for his age. But now he's like a big ass hulk of a dude, I guess. And so it's like,
does he still skate?
I don't think so. Damn. I don't know. He posted something the other day on his Instagram of a skate park. He took a picture of he was in a skate park. So I was thinking, oh shit, maybe he's skating. But he got into like motocross.
So he did. He almost had like the reverse effect you had, kind of.
Yeah. It's funny. I was like heavily into BMX again like 5 years ago as an adult too. I got back into it. Like going to nationals and all kinds of shit. I have like boxes full of trophies in my garage.
For real?
Yeah. I was racing two different classes too. I was racing 20-inch, which is like, you know, the regular BMX bikes, and I was racing 24 cruiser class. So I would show up with both my bikes and shit. Like, yeah, dude. For a minute, for a good, I would say 3 years or 2 to 3 years. I was still skating too, but I just got like the itch. A bunch of my friends of mine too, who were into BMX, who were skaters, who were BMX younger when they were younger, got into it too. So I shouldn't say a bunch, like 3 of them. So we all started doing it together, and I went nuts. I just got right back into that same like BMX groove, and I was like, It's fun.
It's
though.
cool. It's reliving your youth. Yeah, it's
fun, dude. I would do it right now, dude. It's fun as shit, but it's like there's too much other things I'd rather do than race BMX. Like I'm like heavily into surfing now, and I'd much rather go surfing than go BMXing.
I live on an island and I can't swim.
Well, how can you not swim?
I don't ask. Everybody asks me that, and they're like, "What do you just move your arms? You can swim."
So you're an honorary black man.
I guess so.
No, dude, seriously, how can you not? I don't see how. Like, I can understand how children can't swim, like how because they haven't learned yet, whatever. But once you're an adult, you've been in water. Like,
yeah, I don't know. It's something weird. Like, I don't like getting in the water.
I love the water.
I don't know. I got issues. Yeah, it's weird, but I probably should learn. My kids can swim.
Your kids are gonna save your life when you fall in the water.
Well, that's why I had them.
Yeah.
I need somebody to look out for me. I live in a beach town.
There's surf
I'm
there, right?
screwed. Yeah, not where I am. I don't do it, but there is like one of the skate shops that we were like involved with, kind of like, when we used to skate, whatever, that was a shop we were with. And they had a surf department and they had a team and all that stuff. So yeah, people surf. I don't know how good or bad the surf is out here, but people do surf.
I heard there's pretty decent waves out there.
Yeah, I know these dudes will get up early in the morning and because I remember at the skate shop, it was pretty cool though. Like the surfers and the skaters didn't get along.
Yeah.
And the owner didn't like the skaters, but he liked the surfers. So he opened up a separate store around the corner so he didn't have to deal with us.
Really?
And, well, because we would tell him too, like, dude, get these flip-flops away from the skate stuff. Like, this isn't cool.
Yeah.
And I think he got sick of hearing it. So he's just like, whatever. And this was like when Workshop was huge. And, being on the East Coast, we were selling tons of Workshop boards and stuff. So he was kind of like, all right, maybe they know what they're talking about, but I don't want to be near these dudes. So, yeah, he rented out another place around the corner to keep the surf shop. And, yeah.
That's funny.
But they surfed. I mean, they there was definitely – they were doing something with it.
Yeah, I mean, surf culture is pretty lame. Like the stereotypical surf culture, which is like a lot of surf culture, it's pretty lame. Like for me too, like I'm surfing pretty much every weekend, especially like now that once the waves start getting good, like I'll go out and surf in the mornings and then like skate later, whatever, once everybody gets up to go skating.
Yeah,
But yeah, dude, I run into some fucking corny ass fools surfing, and I'm just like,
I'm sure. I remember these dudes, and it was always funny too. Like me and my friends, like we were always skating streets, so they had a mini ramp at this skate shop, and it was funny. The surfers were good at it, and I remember we all sucked at it. Most of us anyway.
Yeah.
And it was so weird.
That makes sense.
The shop owner used to get pissed, like, you're on this team, and like you can't. I was like, dude, we skate street. I was like, I used to tell him though, like, what boards are you selling? Like, what's your most popular board right now? And he'd be like, Josh Kalisz board. And I'm like, and Josh Kalisz can skate mini ramp, and he kills it, but he doesn't. Yeah, I was like, you're not selling out of your Bob Burnquist boards here right now. Where's your Pierre-Luc Gagnon boards? Like, you're not selling
exactly.
Those.
When I first started skating, street skating was a novelty, and vert skating was what was going on. So I grew up skating ramps, early on. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like a lot of my contests that got me sponsored that I entered were mini ramp contests, like, so it's just funny though, like once in the 90s hit, like early 90s and the big street boom, I feel bad looking back on it now, but like I was one of those dick kids who hated on vert. Like, like to me, it was like in my head, like, oh, vert's dead. And it's like, I can't believe I even felt like that ever. Like, it just makes me look back and think like, dude, what a stupid little fucking punk kid I was. Because like, now I love every type of skating. Like, because I skate everything. Like, I would love to. Seriously, in fact, like, I haven't set it up yet. But remember, you sent me like a 9-inch board.
Yeah,
you sent me a big fat 9. I'm gonna set that board up. Huh?
Wow, was it like 8 3/4?
Yeah, maybe it's 8 3/4. It's whatever you used to send to Nate.
Yeah, 8 3/4. Yeah, because I remember like. Mike was telling me, Mike's like, yeah, you guys something. I was like, wow, that's a big board, dude. And I was like, all right.
But I'm going to set that up to be at my vert board because I want to start skating vert again.
Damn. So did you skate vert? Like you've skated vert?
Yeah.
Before?
Oh yeah. Like when I around the time I got on World, or like when I, like let's just say like from like 88 to 90, I skated a ton of vert. Like at that time I knew people. I knew people who had ramps or had friends who would drive to people's ramps. Like I don't even know if you remember, even when I got on World, in the beginning, when I first got on World, I used to hang out with Todd Conjolier a bunch. And I used to like stay over his, and I used to stay over his, in fact, I'm in the Liberty horror video. I have on the slam section, I have 2 slams. Like I do a fakey hang up on, I forgot whose ramp it is. Somebody's ramp in like Manhattan Beach or whatever, Redondo Beach. I do a fakey hang up and I lock up on the way in and slam like straight to my hip on the flat bottom. And then I slam on some double kinked handrail. Like it looks like I nutted on the rail. And I don't know, have you ever seen the Liberty horror video?
No, and you know why I'm going to say I never saw it? Because it was like a ramp video. Like Liberty, I remember it was like Todd Conjolier. I remember the board. Yeah. I remember the boards with the polar bear.
Dude, but Todd Conjolier, he was the baddest vert skater ever. Like that's one of the reasons like drew me to him too. And like I met him and I really wanted to hang out with him because I could, like I said, I could skate vert. I could do like little airs and lip tricks and whatever, but I couldn't blast like, head high airs or anything like that. But I could still, I could throw a line down on vert. And I wanted to learn because he made vert look like he was skating street. You know what I mean? He made vert look enticing to me. He made me want to like fuck if he, like I want to skate vert like him. That's all I could think about. Like he could blast overhead high airs, all tweaked, all super ill. But at the same time, he'd be doing like big spin back lip slides, the back revert, and dude, he was seriously, hands down to me, he's my favorite vert skater of all time. Like hands down. I don't care. I mean, you can say Chris Miller, Buster Halterman, all these other ill ass dudes. Yeah, they're all super ill, but to me, nobody skated like Todd. He looked like he was street skating on vert.
And that's like, anyway. To get a street skater to watch vert, like that's, saying something to what he was doing.
I think Tom Boyle was another one too. Rest in peace, man. But Tom Boyle and Mike V. Rubber Sheet. Mike V killed it. That was like a wooden ramp.
Like that ramp looked like, if I recall right, when he was skating it, right? That was like it didn't look like a perfect ramp either. Yeah.
Yeah, that blew me away. Dude, a lot of shit blew me away in that Rubber Sheet. Mike V skating vert blew me away. Jesse Martinez's part was all vert, and like Jesse was known as a street skater, and he just had that little section on that vert ramp, the field ramp in Venice, killing it. Like, yeah, man. But anyway, so like I was saying, back to the vert thing. Like I became a vert hater, like stupidly. Like,
but hey, I know all about that.
Yeah, it just sucks. Like, 'cause I look back on it now, I'm like, man, like I wish I would have continued with like, being more well-rounded back then.
Yeah, it's funny, and if I recall too, like, I wasn't on the level like you guys were on, but like, but I remember it wasn't cool to be well-rounded. That wasn't cool. Like if you were a park kid, like park kid was like a curse word, or if you were like we didn't have parks, but. Yeah, but we would call we had, I guess with seasonal, we'd have indoor parks and stuff, and there were the kids who would go there, and, you could tell the park locals, like, and, we'd be like, that kid probably can't kickflip without it,
Yeah, we hated on those. We hated on those fools too. We hated on those kids.
Yeah.
Like dudes like that at the time. Yeah, the kids. Yeah. We called them, we called them like contest kids.
Yeah.
That's what we would say, contest kids, because they would come around and they like even like dudes who rip so hard. Like I look back on it, like Chris Sen, one of the gnarliest skaters ever, but we used to hate on him because he could skate everything, and we were like so anti. Dude, I remember being anti Smith grind at one point.
Yeah, and board slide. No, Smith grind, that wasn't cool. I remember that. Like your graphics get screwed up. You had to. I think that, what is it they call it? Like the Forbidden 14. I've heard like that term. And it's like your wheelbase.
I never heard that.
No slide marks. But we weren't doing any bike. We would be bummed like, oh no, got a mark on there.
Yeah,
like,
no lip slides, no lip slides, no, yeah.
Yeah.
But especially I remember like that's so crazy, dude. When I look back on that, like it was only like everything had to be like nose blunt, tail slide, nose slide. Like we weren't like, if you go back and even watch, like, unless it's a handrail. The handrail is the only time you'd throw down like a lip slide trick. But Smith grinds were still taboo.
Yeah.
Early 90s.
I remember that was like this Planet Earth guys or something were doing those, and I was like, it's kind of weird. Like,
I remember Kareem did a Smith grind. It ended up, we were skating this rail in Palos Verdes, and I did a lip slide fakie. He did a Smith grind and a back tail, and it ended up in, I want to say 20 shot. That it was a 20 shot. And I remember being he did a Smith grind. I was like, dude, I remember telling him, yeah, why are you doing a Smith grind, dude? I was like, that shit's whack. You know what I mean? Like, I remember telling him, like being mad at him, like, why, that's like clowning him for doing a Smith grind. Oh, and I look back on that because I can remember that day vividly. I remember Rodney was there. Like, we had a big crew. And I remember vividly telling him that. And like, now I look back and I'm like, dude, I was such a fucking idiot. Like,
it's crazy, dude. I was just as bad. Like I said, I just, we would watch these videos and it was almost like religion to us. So we'd see what was going on, like watching what and like, but it was the same thing with us. Like, we were just like, no, that's not cool. And like, oh, those are the Hesh kids. Like, I don't want to deal with them or,
Yeah. That's because Smith grind was Hesh. That was the whole Hesh thing. And that was like fun. It's funny because that term came about from us, like street skaters at the time, trying to diss the dudes that would gnarly shit.
Yeah,
that's funny, man. It's just
Times have changed. I'm happy that I met other people because like when I got older, anyway, the dudes I was skating with, like a lot of them stopped skating, and I met the younger kids were into different kinds of stuff, and I was kind of like, all right, like, this is different, and I was like, all right, this is cool. And like, I remember Ricky Ariola, and like, I remember he was doing switch nose grinds on ledges here and there and stuff. Like, he wasn't just, I was like, all right, I remember all this shit.
But that's another thing too. Like, even the dude, but see, like, I never looked at Ricky Ariola as being like a Hesh dude.
Because he was skating around. He was keeping it on one truck, and like, he was exactly. He was just more basic and clean. But like, he was. But we called them that just because they were riding like 60 millimeter wheels and 9-inch boards.
Yeah, dude.
Like,
I remember seeing him in Philly, like going on like a tour out there, whatever, at like Love Park, and I remember I couldn't believe how big his fucking wheels were.
Yeah,
they were they were massive. They were like, yeah, dude. They were like the biggest. They were like big. They would be big right now, even.
Yeah. Oh, it was crazy, and I don't even understand how they would pop their tail to do tricks or something like.
But that's why they got such gnarly pop. Because they had so much leverage. That's why he could ollie so high. I thought World was just huge. Well, I thought World was huge everywhere. I didn't know there was like a kind of
I think in the Midwest it was weird because I remember somebody telling me like, oh, Black Label's the biggest brand. And I was like, Black Label? Who the heck's riding that? Because we would go to New York City. Like, me and my friends, like, we'd go to New York City and then you'd see, that's all it was World.
Yeah.
And like, that's what everybody, we'd go to the banks and like, kids knew what was up, as the city kids, like, they got it. And, but we'd come back to
Long Island. But Philly, and they like hated on World in Philly somewhat. They did and didn't. There was a definite separation.
And it was huge. And that's why when I went there, like, I remember like meeting, like, but if you were into World, you were automatically cool with that crew. And the other dudes didn't want to deal with it, but they were cool because they were almost like the minority there. And because everybody was into like the big boards and stuff. It was just weird, man. It was so weird, but like, it was like a bonding thing. Like, we already knew, like,
like if we went to, like, we would know we go to Philly, we go to Love Park because we'll see, like, it's like the Love Park heads, like Lil Stevie and Kalis and like all, it's like those were the dudes who, it was like or like DC. Well, DC was totally different. I think DC was always, because that whole crew, like, like Pooch and Pepe and Chris
Andy
Hall
Stone.
and Andy Stone, like, those dudes were all they were like, we had DC and LA had like a connection, like, early on, a big connection early on.
I've never been there. It kills me. I've never been there.
Oh, dude, Pulaski's the shit.
And I know people there now, and it's like, I gotta get down there. Like,
you can still skate it too.
Yeah.
Dude, I want to go back there really bad. I haven't been there since like probably like 93 or something, 93, 94.
Damn.
I'd love to go back there.
Damn. I wish. I got to go down there. Like, that's like the one.
Dude, it's so easy for you. You could just hop on a train. You could just drive down there.
Yeah, it's like 6 hours. It's like 6 hours for me, I think. So, yeah, and I was talking like,
That's like me driving to San Francisco, which we do all the time out here,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I should do it. I think I got it. I work a lot.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound depressing now, but I should definitely get down there. Fuck. Now I'm depressed. But so I guess we'll get back.
Another thing used to trip me out though too is I always never. I mean, nowadays now I can kind of see why that connection happened, but the New York SF connection, that was an early connection that like there's so many transplants back and forth between New York and SF. A lot of the New York heads, or not even just New York, but a lot of dudes from the East Coast, like they're for them to come to California, they came through San Francisco.
Yeah, I always think it's because of it's almost because it does get cold. It's kind of like the West Coast, New York, kind of just
exactly. And it's a city,
rugged, and
it's like still a contained city. It's like like it's a city. With LA is so sprawled out and huge.
Yeah, you need a car in LA. Like even in New York City, you can take the subway. You get to San Francisco. You can even skate around if you had to.
Yeah,
like but I always thought it was like even Maurice Key, those guys like going out there and
Yeah, they all came to SF. Like everybody I knew from New York, I met in SF. Majority of them, or people I met in New York, I end up seeing them again in SF years later, and they live there. And now everybody lives in LA though.
Yeah,
which is why I don't live in LA anymore. I mean, technically, I still do live in LA because I still live in LA County, but I don't live in the city of LA anymore.
Right.
Because it's fucking ridiculous. It's the worst place ever now. It's all ridiculous anyway because there's no money in skateboarding regardless. In the long run.
Trust me. Me and Mike know all about that. Yeah. And I can only imagine as a profession.
Chasing sponsorship is like the stupidest thing you possibly. Maybe nowadays, I guess not. But,
I guess even still now, unless you're one of the top 5%, like then you can make bank, like real,
Yeah.
But man, we always thought like these, like you guys on World, like you guys are like, there must be millionaires. We didn't know. We were kids, and like you guys are like the best of the best.
Nobody was a millionaire. But we did. I mean, World set the industry standard for paying skaters at the time. Skaters did not. I mean, besides like the heyday of the '80s, the Krishna Soy, Bones Brigade, when skateboards had one graphic for 2 years, 3 years straight. You know what I mean? Like that's one thing that Rocco fucked up. Rocco, he was brilliant by changing the graphics every month or so or whatever. It wasn't every month, but it felt like every month. It was like every 3 months. But like they changed like quarterly. But he was brilliant at that because what it did was made more money for the company and less money for the pros when it came to board sales. Because the iconic graphics sold and they always will sell. So by taking away the the iconicism from is that even a word, iconicism? Probably not. But like by taking that away from the skater. Like, so the skater is like not like doesn't have, because think about, there were skaters in the 80s who sucked. Pro skaters. I mean, I shouldn't say they sucked. I'm being harsh.
No, but like you knew their board. You didn't know them. I hate to say it.
Exactly.
And like I could be out of line here, but like I knew Corey O'Brien's board. I knew Corey O'Brien's board. I don't know if he was good or not.
Me too.
I don't know.
I knew Corey O'Brien's board, but all I've ever seen of Corey O'Brien skate wise is like a like 4 or 5 trick section in fucking like one of the Speed Freaks videos.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I ever known of Corey O'Brien. Maybe a couple ads of him doing a slappy. Like, like I've never knew shit of Corey O'Brien. To this day, I still don't.
But you knew that graphic.
He made a ton of money. He made a ton of money off that board. The fucking skull, like the Reaper holding like that fireball. He made so much money off that board. It's to this day, like that dude's going to go down in history. Like he'll probably go, he might get inducted to the Skateboard Hall of Fame, which is some bullshit anyway. But you know what I'm saying? Like, because of that graphic.
Yep.
And that's something like us 90s pros didn't have. We never, we'll never get, So
yeah, I mean, I remember graphics, but no, there was nothing like Ray Barbie.
Yeah, but
these things. Yeah, I can't.
Like Keith Meek. Nobody even, like, I didn't even, you had seen that Santa Cruz board?
Yeah.
For years. I saw that board for so many years. I didn't find out that was a pro model until, like, I was already like a educated skater, like, almost, verge of being sponsored skater, that I knew that, that's a Keith Meek pro model. I just knew it was like, I thought it was a Santa Cruz logo board, the slasher.
Yeah, the Santa Cruz slasher. Yeah. I didn't know that. My wife got me a Jeff Phillips book. And I was looking through it. And like, I remember I was like looking at all the boards and I was like, oh my God, Keith Meek, like, cool.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No clue, but I knew that. Knew that board.
And
here's
another crazy one. And this dude was like one of the raddest dudes that wrote for Pal. He was one of the reasons why Pal Peralta like put the name on the map way before Steve Caballero and like Tony Hawk and those dudes. Those dudes were little kids. Was fucking Ray Bones Rodriguez, and he was the dude. He was the baddest dude. And that skull and sword, the OG Pal. That's his pro model.
Wow,
that's his pro graphic, and like people don't even know that.
Damn.
Yeah, dude.
And I'll bet. Do they still run that?
Yeah.
Like they might, like whatever is left of Powell or whatever it is.
Yeah, that was that skull and sword board was the jump off for the Tony Hawk graphic, the Steve Caballero, for all those graphics. That was the OG. That was the graphic that put Powell on the map. That was that skull and sword. That was the first.
I had a T-shirt. I had a T-shirt before I skated. I remember I wanted a board so bad, and my parents were like, "Well, you can't skateboard yet. You're too young." But I remember my dad would buy me skate T-shirts. Like, I guess there was some place by his job. It was the skate shop. I remember I had that.
So you were a poser. You were a poser before you started skating.
I still am. But yeah, no, totally. I totally was. And I'd wear it to like school. And, the kids would say that, like, "Oh, you're a poser. Like, you don't have a board. Can you skate?" And I'm like, "No, I can't skate, but I want a board." Like, yeah, I was a poser. That's
funny, dude. That's cool, though. That's cool. You're like, fuck, you were determined, though.
I was excited. It was something about it, man. I always just liked it. I just thought everything about it was cool, and all the, being just the boards and everything about it. Yeah, it was everything was different. I don't know why these kids skate nowadays. I wonder if I would even want to.
Exactly. I wouldn't. I don't know. I probably wouldn't either. Because one of the main things that drew me to skateboarding was how it was so much different. That it was freedom. It was like freedom of thought. It was so different than everything else. And think about how free thinking skateboarding is, like skateboarders are. I think we're the most free thinkers, outside of like fucking philosophers that exist on planet Earth, probably. When you really think about it.
Mm-hmm. It's right now. But it was, and there was just so much to it, and the culture and everything, and like you could go out and do it. You already kind of being a skateboarder, you knew more, you were around more. We used to go to this. I was 15 years old going into New York City, and it's like the kids in my school, I went to Ellis Island on a field trip. Like, man, we were like skating around all these places. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just the stuff you see.
It meant so much.
Yeah.
No, it meant it seriously. That's really what skateboarding was to me. It was freedom. The people who were into it, like especially like growing up being black too, like into skateboarding, like and I'm just being into skateboarding. I think even just like we're always wearing like because I grew up in I was born in '75, so I dealt with a lot of racism, like growing up. Like when I look back on it now and I see how things are now. Even though like there's obviously some real blatant fucking, nationwide racism going on that like, it's not the same as it was even though people are tripping out now saying like, oh my, like, people are like, everybody's like coming out. Like they were like so politically correct before. And now people are like, voicing their whatever, their bigotries and shit, like out in the open now. It still doesn't compare to like what it was in the early 80s.
No, it's not even close. The stuff that people would get away with. I mean, I could think of stuff as a kid and not even realize, not even, and then it's like, oh my God. Yeah.
Like I man, it's funny to this day. Like I don't hear the word nigger, like, unless it's like, I'm calling somebody like, oh, what's up, my nigga? Like shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't hear that shit unless it's like black people saying it or like, I don't hear that anymore. But like, you don't hear white people don't just like, drive by and see you on the street and be like, nigger or shit like that. That shit doesn't happen anymore. It just doesn't. When I was a kid, that shit used to happen all the time. Straight up. When I was a kid, like, especially skating too, like skating around different places, different neighborhoods, fools would roll by. Older teenagers would roll by and like yell out like, fuck you, nigger, and shit like that. Just cruising by in their car. You know what I mean? Like that was it was so normal that like it didn't even faze me. After, you know what I'm saying?
Which is unbelievable. But it's just, it's different times, man. Yeah.
So used to it.
It's different times.
I'm just saying the racism was so accepted. It was so accepted back then. Like white supremacy in this country was so accepted that people just like, oh, well, that's just, that's how it's been. That's how it is. And that's what sparked everything in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, all that fucking, Public Enemy, like the conscious hip hop, all that shit. Like that truly, that's why that was the best era of skateboarding, because that time changed the way everybody thought in the world.
I was going to say, like, so you were on World, and that was at that time, like, Love Child. Like, that was a racially diverse team. You know? That was...
yeah. It was probably, like the first.
Yeah, and it was there Jed Walters or whatever, and, you know, if you want to count Chris Brannick.
Yeah, my boy, yeah.
But, like, yeah, it was, you know... And me and my friends, we just see it as, like, it's skateboarding, and these guys look cool. Like, you know, we didn't, you know...
Yeah.
You skate. It's kind of like a skate thing almost. You just
like those dudes, you know, some Asian and Black and Hispanic dudes. Nah, I know.
Yeah,
no, I know. Like the people who are down, like for it. I don't think anybody at the time really looked at it like that. Like looked at it and was like anybody who was part of like what was going on in skateboarding and street skating. They didn't look at it like, oh, this is, you know, there's not a lot of white people on a team or whatever. When all of skateboarding before that was nothing but white people, like white pros. I think it was just so organic. It was something that was happening. It was just, I don't know. It was a natural flow of things, you know, because it had to happen. Shit was about to pop. You know, there were so many kids in the inner city who were good street skaters because that's all they had to skate, especially that. Of course, they were going to come up. You know what I mean? And Rocco was like, "I'll sponsor every single one of you."
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? He knew that was his meal ticket. So. You know, and I shouldn't say that. That's like, I don't think Rocco just saw dollar signs. Rocco was just a really smart dude, and he's truthfully one of the coolest people I've ever met in my life.
Did he love skating? Like he loved skating?
Yeah, dude, he ripped at skating. He was like one of the early street pioneers.
Yeah,
like,
I know he was like a freestyle pro. I mean,
Yeah, but he was like, he made the freestyle, the transition for freestyle to street before any other freestyler, and so early on, dude, he invented the frontside pop shove it.
Damn.
Front pops, that's Steve Rocco's trick. He invented that trick. Like Mark Gonzalez learned that trick from Steve Rocco.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like that was, I'm just saying, like, and he was homies because he transitioned to street skating so early on. And plus he's like got the gift of gab, you know? He was homies with like Nodis and Rocco. He was so much homies with those dudes. When he started his own company, they all left their shit to come with him. Think about that.
Yeah, big names,
right? Like, yeah, the biggest names in skateboarding at the time. You know, the ones that mattered. Like they didn't want Tony Hawk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Tony Hawk's amazing. They didn't want Tony Hawk, but you know, Mark Gonzalez, Nodis Coppice, fucking, you know, Jesse Martinez, you know, Mike V, like Mike Valley, dude, you know, everybody, Jason Lee, you know. Yeah,
it was stacked, and then it was like
Jason Lee actually didn't really have to come from anywhere. He was an up and comer. But still, they took the baddest dudes like Rocco. Those just because they were Rocco's friends, and dude, Rocco tried to help a gang of his friends. When you think about it, he Todd Swank, Liberty Foundation was out of World originally. You know what I mean?
It was, right? Okay.
Yeah.
That I never knew. I guess we were too far away to know, but I always heard. But then what did he?
Yeah, when I got on World, Foundation was still part of under World's umbrella, and that's when they had that one of their sickest videos ever, Glam Boys on Wheels. It's like the first Foundation video, like Peter Hewitt when he was like young, super youngster, ripping. Like anyway, yeah, Foundation, because Swank was Rocco's homie. He hooked up all his boys. Mike Smith was his homie, so he hooked him up with Liberty. You know, like he gave all those dudes, a lot of dudes, a shot. Even over the years, even later on, with like Prime and what else was out of World?
Shaolin
with Hard.
What did you guys think of that one? That was one I remember. That was like all the flow dudes. They just threw them all on.
Yeah, that's what sucked though, because I was so down like with Hartzell and Slick, like, you know what I mean. And I was down, and at the time I was like super down for Kung Fu. I was still down for Kung Fu, but I was like studying at the time too. Like I was down for Shaolin, and it bummed me out that like, because they had so much original ideas. That shit was like, you know, it was an original idea. Like just their concepts, you know, I don't know. They were doing some crazy shit, but the throwing all the fucking, you know, the farm.
That's what it was though. It was like a
farm team.
Yeah,
it was a farm team. Yeah, and by doing it like making it like that, it just killed it immediately. It was, you know.